Heard a lot about this show, the ex-candidates.
These institutions which we've been told to respect and trust are actually completely untrustworthy.
Have you confirmed that you are negative before attending tonight if you are unvaccinated?
I still see people with masks on and driving, and they're in the car by themselves.
So you can pay my electricity bill, you thinking that was fair.
We're teaching them about what it means to be a pansexual instead of teaching them how to do your taxes.
It's no for me. I say no to the boys.
Okay, welcome to the ExCandidates. We have some really special guests on tonight. We have Oraile and we have Tallesha, and they were the founders of the Young Freedom Fighters, which was really good to hear that we've got some young kids or younger people, not just kids, sorry, if you excuse me for that. So we've got younger people actually really trying hard to, get their point across, and I've scrolled through some of their Facebook, Instagram pages and things like that. So welcome Tallesha and welcome Oraile.
Thank you for having us.
That's all right. That's good. Thank you for being on the show. It's really, really great. So we've had some technical issues. So we've got Stephen, who is normally, and what everyone's going to see is definitely the glue for the ex-candidate. So he's the one who does all the technical work and all the important main stuff to make it, professional. So I'm here just going to do my thing, and we're going to be just chatting about you guys and what experiences have you had. I want to talk about the Young Freedom Fighters. I'm going to get that handle, and I'm going to jump on there because I heard that it's been going a little bit crazy as from Oraile saying. So who wants to go first? I want to actually. All right. So Tallesha, I'll let you go first. Just give us a little bit of introduction about yourself, what you're doing, and all that kind of stuff, and then Oraile, and then we'll just start chatting.
Okay. Well, I'm Tallesha. I'm an 18-year-old university student. I'm pretty conservative with my political views, and I definitely struggle fitting in this generation with those views. So it's really interesting to find other young people my age.
Excellent. All right, Oraile?
I'm Oraile. The Candid Patriot on Instagram. Tallesha, myself, Ethan, and Marissa started the Young Freedom Fighters, which is a group to basically help other young people find each other as well as educate them on current affairs and whatnot. I've been homeschooled my entire life, so that's fun. And yeah, happy to be here.
Excellent. Well, that's great. That's great to hear, and we've got two different dynamics now. So we've got Tallesha, who's gone through normal schooling, so you've gone just to like Catholic or public or whatever school, just regular
public schools,
and then you're homeschooled, Oraile. So interesting to see. So I only ever went to just the regular schools too. So I went through Catholic schools my whole life, from primary through to high school. And I didn't go to uni, so uni's really interesting. So we know that uni's far left, and so tell us about Tallesha. Tell us, well, A, what are you studying, and B, what do you see? What are you seeing happening in the university environment?
I just did a bridging course into university, and next year I'm going to study political science.
Oh, I feel sorry for you.
Should be interesting.
Yeah.
And the universities are very, very left. Like it's not an understatement. Yes, the lecturers are very well. There's no in school. There's like rules and regulations against teachers sharing their political views, so that does block a level of say indoctrination, but in university they kind of have free reign, so there's no level of protection for the students. The lecturers can kind of teach whatever they want and say whatever they want on a political basis.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really interesting for students that disagree with them, because it's very hard to openly disagree, because like your marks could suffer. because they could
Really?
mark you down. Yeah. So I did, in my bridging course, I did sociology, and that was obviously very, very far left. So like on assignments and stuff, that would be based on like very left topics like Marxist theory and stuff. You kind of had to accept their way as truth. And if you debated that, you wouldn't get the marks because you'd be seen as incorrect. Like a question in one of my tests was, is gender fixed? And the correct answer was false, because it's supposed to be
Fluid?
Yeah, fluid. So yeah, if you disagreed with that, you'd lose that mark. So yeah, it's very hard to get around it. You pretty much can't.
So like in essence, they kind of. So I guess they're kind of teaching a lot. To me, it's like, I'm obviously conservative as well, and to me, you have male or female. Now I cop it all the time on my Facebook page when I post anything regarding gender as well. So I kind of can feel what you're kind of feeling at this point, because if you go, well, men are men and women are women, and that's how we're born. And then I got some guy just jumped on there and goes, yeah, but there are a couple of species of animals on Earth that can change their gender. Yeah, but that's a natural. Like, I know frogs can change their gender or something like that, and I only learned that from Jurassic Park. So, so
same here.
Frogs, you're right. So frogs can change their gender. Okay, but they do that as an element of survival. So, but I'm not going to reply to him because I just don't reply to stupid anymore. But I was going to say that, in my head, I'm thinking about, well, you can just sit there and hope and think and hope and pray and think and hope and pray and try to change your gender if you want. But unless you get the knife out, unless you get the scalpel, and then you start cutting away and hacking away at your body and taking endless amounts of tablets, it's never going to happen. So that's pretty, so, all right, we've got maybe a frog or some sort of seahorse or something can change their gender if they need to survive. But, because the post he posted, this one was up, it was about a dog. If you castrated, you know how you de-sex a dog? So you have a male dog, you de-sex the male dog, and then it's still a male dog. Even though it's missing the primary part of being a male, we still consider it a male dog, right? So obviously it's a bit more crude than that, but so when I posted that up, and I'm like, kind of like common sense, right? But so I've copped a bit of flack for that, and I've got a few more people now trolling my page as well, so it's pretty awesome. So Oraile, well, I look at it as when people are trolling your page, you're doing something right, because unless you're ruffling feathers, you're not doing enough. So you have to ruffle feathers to be actually trying to get your point across. Okay, Oraile. So you are homeschooled. So you've been homeschooled for since start. So what's your experiences like with that? How are you finding that?
So my parents have got a lot of control over who I hang out with socially. So I've never, or I have a few times, but it was very rare for me to run into someone who, disagreed, which meant that when I did run into those people, it was like new territory and very fun to explore. I went to an after-school drama club for, I think, 2 years? No, maybe 2 terms. I'm not entirely sure, but a little while. And most of the people there were left. But because homeschooling, your parents are the people telling you your worth, and they're the people, I guess, giving you your identity. I came in very sure of myself, and, a lot of confidence. So people I think they just found it hard to argue with me, because it was like, at that point, I had been well educated, and you can't really, argue with that, especially if you're struggling with your own identity and they kind of, I guess, know who they are. And I remember I walked in and everyone was wearing masks because it was kind of that time, but we have stat decks. And I was kind of just talking about it and how useless they are. And the one kid in the back who had been wearing a mask the entire time just ripped it off and threw it on the floor. And it was so satisfying to watch. Unfortunately, the teacher wasn't there, and then she walked back in with her mask on, but there wasn't really any point in bringing it up again. So.
And that person who ripped their mask off became best friends with you forever?
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm pretty sure they were only there for the points.
Okay.
Yeah, they didn't really participate in drama. But if only they did, that would have been so fun.
Don't you think that it's interesting that you were saying that you were in a drama class, and then they're very left-wing people, and it feels like, the right kind of thing. Like, it's like, because they're so dramatic, they're the ones who, like, right? They glue their hands to, artworks from, from Rembrandt and like all these, famous artists, Michelangelo, they go, like, I'd like to go see them and, stick their hand to the David or something, you know what I mean? Like, because it's, but that it's so dramatic. And I think conservative people, and both of you can weigh in on this, well, just with the homeschooling thing. So it was interesting to see the difference between when I had to homeschool my children, during the COVID lockdowns, right? Because we, in the end, you just go like, as a parent, I was just kind of like, you know what, just leave them at home and let's just figure it out. So I went and bought some NAPLAN books because we had to jump between, and as Oraile will know, I'm not very good technically on computers or anything like that. So I just went and said, you know what, don't worry about the iPads. Don't worry about whatever curriculum the school wants you to do, because it was between one page here and another page here and Google documents there. And I'm just like, I just can't be. Like, we spent hours just figuring out the systems. So I said, you know what, don't worry about it. So I basically turned off all the devices, whatever. I said, just don't worry about that. I went down to the shop very covertly, not James Bond music, Mission Impossible music, and, trying to, just not getting pulled over by the police and all that kind of stuff. And I got the, because I'm in Campbelltown. So what happens is we were in one of those heavy lockdown areas. So we weren't allowed to go 3 Ks away from our house and all that. But anyway, so what I did was I went and bought some NAPLAN books, and I just said to my teenager, she was able to use her systems. It was a little bit better than my 11-year-old's programming. So mainly I focused on the 11-year-old stuff because the teenager was more self-sufficient with everything. And then what I did was I said, look, do 3 pages a day, and you have to write your times tables out every day. So she had to do from 1 to 12 times tables every day. After about 4 months of that, so the NAPLAN book, in the exercise book, with handwriting all the answers and all that kind of stuff, and just getting it, And what I love about the books was that you can visualize it. So the computers are really kind of hard to stare at all day, but the book you can kind of just, and then you can stop for a second, you can put your finger on it, kind of thing, then go back and kind of read. It just felt more organic. So anyway, we did that for a few months, and she went back to school and she was ahead. So she was ahead because I didn't realize this, because I'm not the greatest at maths either. I'm not really good at anything really. But what happens is you have you can't do any mathematics without your times tables. Really, if you think about it, if you're adding or subtracting or dividing, it's all kind of like times tables. And I didn't realize this till I was teaching my daughter times tables. So that was pretty interesting there. And so that was an interesting thing. Obviously, I'm a waffler too. I go off topic as well. So, but the homeschooling thing was very important. That's where I could see the difference, because you can focus on a little bit more specific. So if you were struggling with something around, like, you would be able to focus on that for longer. So you could go, well, I'm not really sure how to do long division. And was it your mum and dad teaching you, or you running the curriculum?
So my mother was a stay-at-home mum. She didn't work.
Yep.
So for good maybe 8 years, it was my mother.
Yep.
And then when we moved house, I kind of took it into my own hands because we started a family business. So she got very busy there and just started using Khan Academy, which is pretty left, but I mean, maths can't really be left. So for the most part was fine.
unless you watch the movie 1984, which is probably a little bit too old for you, but what that happens is, whereas 2 + 2 is 5, apparently. So, and that's the first. I only just watched it the other night, and I'm just like, oh my god, this is really happening. So that's an interesting one as well. Okay, so yeah, so that I can see the difference between homeschooling and stuff like that too. And it's very important because we've spoken to a few people on this podcast, like Lyle Schwim, and a few of these got about education and things like that, and how we can fix it. And now my party leader, Mark Latham, so he's the chair of the education board or committee. And what happens is we always are trying to improve and catch our students, our New South Wales students up because we're so far behind in curricula. So we're about 4 to 5 years behind in mathematics compared to a Chinese student at the same age, which is, we're a first world country. So, so it's interesting, it's going to be a combination between homeschooling and regular public schooling systems, I think. So that was pretty interesting there. So that's really good. Okay, Tallesha. So with the uni thing, what uni? If you don't feel comfortable to say what uni you go to, that's fine. But we were in the Sydney University recently for the Friedman Conference, which is a conservative conference. And I was so surprised that they did not fly an Australian flag at the whole place. So we had the trans pride flag.
Yeah.
We had the gay flag, I think, and we had the Aboriginal flag, Torres Strait Islander flag, and
Ukraine
I think that was
flag.
No Australian flag. So that was pretty. I don't. You get from that. Just from that, you can understand where the division comes from, like the divide is,
exactly.
like, and you were saying that it's very hard for you to debate at university if you don't agree with something, Tallesha.
Yeah.
So what they talk about things like inclusivity, and you need to be included. Everyone should be included, and we don't want to exclude anyone, and justice for gays and all this kind of stuff. How do you feel pretty included if you don't agree with a topic that's being, like Marxist ideology, which is I don't like it either. So it's not, so because funnily enough, so we get called, what do they call us? Nazis. So apparently Nazis right wing, even though I can only see it as left wing, but so they call us Nazis, but anyone will come up, you're a Nazi, homophobic, transphobic, blah 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 blah, all the time. That's what that's what we call, and that's it's really just a crutch, because if you're talking about common sense thing, if you're talking about anything that you have a little bit of evidence for, and they got no answer for you to that. Like, so if you say that, well, we want to have, what do you call it? Wind turbines everywhere to produce our power. And you say, but your idea is to save the planet. And then they go, yeah. And then you say, well, trees save the planet. And they go, yeah. And then you go, well, why would I clear cut hectares and hectares of forest to put up concrete towers that don't work all the time? And then they're like, well, you're just a Nazi. And you're like, well, okay, thanks, but where's the answer? So how do you? So back to my question. Sorry, how included do you feel in this full left wing ideology of inclusivity?
Not very included, to be honest. I'm also Christian.
Oh gosh, you're in trouble now.
That definitely makes it worse, because Christianity is constantly attacked, like by our generation especially. It's really weird, because other religions aren't attacked the same as Christianity. It's crazy. Like, the left love to attack Christianity and say that it's so right wing and so behind the times, but then don't question any other religion and any of their oppressive views, because a lot of other religions aren't very progressive at all and haven't progressed with the times, when a lot of when Christianity as a whole has progressed quite a bit. like a lot of Christians aren't super traditional, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So they definitely do try to adapt with the times and be a bit more inclusive, but then other religions aren't, yet Christianity is the one that's constantly attacked.
Well,
so it's like very unfair.
Well, I'm a Christian too. Oraile, are you Christian or are you atheist? And yeah, you're Christian as well. So Christianity was, pretty much one of the biggest religion across the world, really, wasn't it, for such a long time? And people don't realize that they wouldn't probably have what they have without Christianity. So, and Christianity is conservative, but it's very, do unto others as you do to you want to be treated, or treat others as you want to be treated. That's my favorite, one of my favorite sayings in the Catholic religion. I think that's one of the commandments or something like that. You're going to catch me out now because I'm a little bit rough. I went to Catholic schools my whole life. I've been to church every week for years, but you tune out when you get to a certain age. So, but because what happens is the values are inside you. So you find that what happens is when you're younger, you go to church all the time and you kind of learn the values and you learn the Bible and the commandments and all that kind of stuff. And it was, 10 laws to live your life by, and if you take them to your heart and live by those, you actually live a good life. So, I sleep very well at night because I don't go out to hurt anyone or anything. And I think that's the fundamental cause of the religion.
Just adding on to what was being said earlier about Christianity not moving on with the times, I think it has moved on very well if you consider some of the things, even in the Old Testament of like Proverbs 31, she girds herself with strength and she strengthens her arms. She works. She supplies sashes for the merchants. She sells her clothing. Christians were actually some of the people fighting for women's rights in the early days because the Bible views man and woman as equal. The Bible was talking about LGBTQ before it was even heard of, It has even now, it's given us rules to follow in such a time that would have been so unheard of back in the day. But it definitely has drawn the line of, man crossing over to woman. God made man and he made woman. In my personal opinion, it has kept pretty well in terms of keeping up with the times.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
no, I agree. It definitely has
Agree.
progressed, especially compared to other religions. That's why I don't understand why it's the most attacked. And it's claimed to be so radical when it's like not.
I think I misinterpreted it as like Christians progressing from the Bible as the Bible progressing with the faith, with the world. Sorry, my bad.
That's okay.
No, that's okay. That's all good. But I agree. I think that because the fundamentals are so, the fundamentals are about being good. So what happens is they've just rolled on with the times. Like it's they're very basic. So they can be adapted and molded to more complicated and more complex issues. And I think what happens is, and where you get why are we being attacked? Because what happens is they attack through history. And look, in World War II, the priests and church groups were shut down straight away because people listened to their leaders and they were communities. And if you can see that the community groups get shut down, it happened again during COVID, is that we weren't allowed to go to church and pray. And they shut down all kind of churches, and predominantly, obviously, Catholics and Catholic churches in Australia still. I mean, we do have Islamic and Orthodox and all that kind of stuff, And they all got shut down like evenly, like you won't be able to congregate. But what happens is there was an attack on religion as a whole, is that because what happens is if you had a really good priest, because we still have priests that are kind of like, just clocking in and doing their job, and then you have priests that are really care and passionate about it and really do lead their communities, So those kind of they're real leaders. And if a priest says to its congregation, don't worry about, God's got you. Don't worry about lockdowns, and don't worry about wearing masks. God put Jesus, you got a nose and a mouth to breathe in the fresh air that God's given you. Then people would do that. And what happens is, and they attack that kind of thing. I noticed as well. They came in from they got the doctors monetarily wise, so that they could still keep them open and stuff like that. But I'm sure that they were getting paid to do certain things. So what happens, with the injections, there was all that beneficial. There was benefits for them, So because in World War II, like the doctors got shut down and taken away because people used to respect a doctor and not question a doctor, and they had a community underneath them, and they were considered leaders. So same with certain businesses and and all that kind of stuff. They were attacked. So I think the same thing with Christianity, Tallesha, is that Christianity is, although it's not I still don't feel it's as strong as it used to be, especially in Australia. It's definitely not like what it was. But I think the community's still there, and I think if you're given a tangible enemy, okay. So at the moment we had a virus, which is not really a tangible enemy, okay. So that's like, you can't really fight a virus. The only way you can fight a virus is vaccine, blah blah, whatever. But if we had a common enemy, a real enemy, like say a foreign power tried to march on Australia, people would come together and congregate at churches again, and community would form stronger, and we would find our faith again, and because it's still there, and I think what would happen is that's something that people fear. Is that what happens is how powerful and how much you think about the Bible and its teachings, and how and basically the Bible's got spread around the world and conquered the world, really. So people know that when people believe in something as good as the good book and they get together on it, that they can actually conquer the world. And I think if there's anybody out there who wants to take over the world for their own reason, it doesn't matter what, like another religion or another faction or whatever ideology, they need to attack Christianity, because Christianity is so strong, and it is a freer religion than most. Like you're saying, it is quite progressive. Like we don't have to wear, veils and things like that. Anything with it. We can still live our lives. We can still go and drink. We can still, we can still eat all kinds of foods. Only on Good Friday is the one day that you don't eat meat. Some people don't eat. I think some people don't eat meat on Sundays in Catholic.
Yeah, I think. I know Seventh-day Adventists don't eat meat. I think on Saturday or Sunday. Yeah.
So that's So that's what I mean. Like there's a fair bit of I think out of a lot of the religions, Catholicism's quite an easy religion to be in with, like to be in line with. And don't forget too, because it has changed over the years and it has gotten easier, and church has gotten shorter, and so they've just tried to keep it going. So I do agree with you, and I do agree that it has evolved, and I just don't want it to lose all its roots in our society, because I do believe that conservative values and Catholicism has really paved the way for the greatness of our country. And if that's why I believe that they are attacking it, because has paved the way to greatness for so long. And how do you beat that? And the left idea, Marxist ideology, it's to break down the family unit. It's to break down It's to break down community and create individualism. Yeah. So it's about the self, not about others.
Yeah.
So I think that's, if you see that, don't you think that's a bad thing? Because if you're not doing it for somebody else, then there's no real point to kind of do it. In Catholic teachings, I think, in conservative way. So I think that's why they attack us. And okay, so let's go on to this the young freedom fighters. So, what were both of your experiences with that? Because that was something that I think we should somehow. I know that you've kind of slowed it down at the moment. Oraile was saying, but tell me about your experiences with that, because it's very interesting to me, and I like to see young people really getting in there and having a go. So, what was that like?
So, the core focus of our group was to target young people and to help them just know that they're not alone, kind of thing. And once we had accomplished that goal, there started to become more politics between the activists that we were fighting than like actual politics. And, we had already accomplished our goal. So it was kind of like, we don't want to keep on going and then become something that we're not, from my point of view. And then we all had studies and got a bit burnt out with everything.
I hear. So with the activists, so I'll just quickly just talk to just about this activist point. So what was the go with that? Like, how did that work? Like, so you had people inside your actual group starting to become more activists, or activists externally coming in and trying?
It was more like our group got linked in with the freedom movement. Yeah, so there was other groups within the freedom movement that we kind of got caught up with a little bit, or wanted to help us, or like somehow like support us or be a part of us. But then that kind of, it was more people playing like politics, but not actually focusing on political issues.
Okay.
Yeah. And then in terms of like helping younger people, because what would happen is we'd go to the protests and we'd have someone up there who would do publicity for us. And then young people would find that. They'd find us on Instagram and they'd follow us. And then we had weekly Zooms that went for about 2 weeks, where people would come on and kind of, network and meet each other. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, okay, that's all right. So what happened was, so from the goal that you guys set out to do, which was create a community of young people who were basically centre right or conservative, and then it became so what happens is that community kind of then got overrun by the freedom movement.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then it became more about politics, but not really about the issues.
Yeah, like just politics between the other activists kind of thing.
Yeah, like the other separate freedom groups.
Yeah.
All right, so have we got it? Can we name the freedom group?
Poach.
I don't think we should name anyone just because,
Not to be mean, I just want to try and get that. So like, all right, so okay, so you were the young freedom fighters, okay, and then you had another group like the super freedom fighters. And then the super freedom fighters might have been a little bit more right wing than you guys, so then you kind of like started fighting with each other a bit.
Well, I wouldn't say that. It was more so like okay. I need
like
to
other
say this without, like,
Instagram accounts.
Yeah.
So you run this podcast, but then there's a bunch of other people doing like similar things, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like
so
within the same area, like within like Sydney or something. There's lots of different.
So then
turned
was competition
into a guilty by association.
Yeah, it was kind of like competition between them, because we were young.
But they would.
Everyone was almost trying to like poach us, like, oh, come join our group, or because they wanted the young people within their group.
Yeah. Okay.
But then when we wanted to like speak our views, it was more like, no, shush, to let the adults speak. We know more.
Yeah.
But even though we're on the same side, like we're all conservative, and you want our perspective, like our youth perspective, but won't let us talk, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that kind of just made it very difficult to run our group when people were constantly trying to get other young people that we were bringing together and kind of like poach them, or trying to get them to support their group or speak within their different groups. So it made it a bit difficult.
Yeah, fair enough. I hear what you're saying.
problem that I've noticed among the freedom movement is that you have a lot of people who are genuinely, care about the movement and they care about the cause. But whenever there's a large amount of people who all care about one thing, that one thing then generates money. And as soon as you see some of that money, you get corrupted. So a lot of the movements were, in the beginning they were genuine and they cared, and then all the people started coming and they had all the fundraisers, and then it was just a large stone rolling down a hill.
And then it's about the money.
Yeah,
Well, that's
pretty
where
much.
that's where it's really so don't forget. So you know what, in the adult world it's the same. Well, I'm not saying you aren't like there, but what I'm saying in the political world that I'm more involved in being a candidate, you can see it's kind of the same thing. So it's really hard on the individual that's why it's so, funnily enough, this is where Christianity really comes into it, and the teachings and your your own values. And I call it a code. So I live by a certain code that I have. So I've just got this code that I've made up over the years and it's mostly, just don't hurt no one, just be good, and really just kind of stay out of it, really. But what happens is you got to try and, that's where you got to try and not be corrupted by it. So, you can generate money, and you can, but the thing is you need to hold on to your true cause. So I understand what you're saying there about
There was like
about the money.
I don't know,
the money
lack
takes
of
it over.
morals.
Yeah, as soon as money gets involved, that's it. People just go nuts with it because if you wanted to do a barbecue and then you ask people to put $5 in just to chip in for the food, then you need a treasurer, and then you need to account for where all the money's gone, and you need to see how much has come in, how much has gone out, what's left over, and all that kind of stuff. Where it should be more of those freedom movements should be more community based, shouldn't they? Like it should be like
exactly.
You shouldn't have to ask for, you shouldn't have to ask if you've got your group leader, like you guys were the leaders, and then you wanted to do something, and it's going to cost money. You think that the people who were part of the group would just go, well, here's a couple bucks, here's a couple of bucks, whatever they had kind of in their pocket, and it's not about you guys making money or me making money or somebody making money. It's just about kind of paying your way and owning what you're doing. So money's definitely the biggest corrupter out there. So that'll I would have liked to seen Jesus actually, in today's society. You know what I mean? And see how I'd like to, some more teachings from him might have been a good way to, a bit more perspective, a bit more current to our, a bit more specific on our situation at the moment with technology and all that kind of stuff. So it's pretty interesting. So, so that's the Young Freedom Fighters. So then you guys ended up winding it up a little bit, did you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it didn't
much.
really have any.
Got a bit burnt out.
Mm.
Yeah, especially we wanted to focus on like politics and actually bringing people together, but other factors kept getting involved, and we kind of just had enough of trying to deal with other factors and competing with other groups.
Yeah.
When we didn't want to compete with them, but we were being told, oh, this group, like help this group and they'll help you, but don't help them unless they're going to help you back. And all this I'll scratch your back, you scratch my back thing with all these different freedom movements, and then we just all kind of had enough. And we're like, okay, we're just going to not involve ourselves with that.
Well, Tallesha, it's a really good experience for you, especially because you're going into the political sciences and stuff in university and that, right?
Yeah.
So that burnout is very, very real, because I can tell you when you run a campaign and so I'm, you guys know I'm One Nation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So One Nation. So we get help. Like we can ring up the head office and go, hey, we need this, or what do you think about that? Or somebody asked me this question, what should we say? Or what's our stance on that, so that I can formulate a proper answer. So we get some support. We've been getting a bit of training as well regarding the state stuff as well. But you run your own campaign. So it's money. So obviously, you know, like I've got my own small business, this, that, the other, and all that kind of stuff, right? So it's money. Your own money goes into it. All the spare time that you have. So I've got, you know, 3 children and a wife, a business to run, and I do other stuff as well. So what happens is you get, so you're doing your 40 to 60 hour work week, and then everything else fits in underneath. Like tonight, like this is part of politics for me, because I get to hear people's perspective. They get to hear about me. They can see my videos, and I'm getting my word out to them. So this is part of the whole political process for me. It's made me a much better politician. It's made me much better candidate, I believe. So what happens is that burnout's very real. And then you do have to learn how to tread your water and who you're going to deal with and who you're going to deal with. Personally, I've found that I think at this level, and probably at the level of the movement that you guys were doing, it's better just to stay to yourself, and just kind of you build your own kind of group and community and let it slowly expand. How many people do you reckon you had in there? 20, 25, 30, 100?
We got to a little over 1,000 when we ended.
1,000.
Is that on? That's followers
1,000.
on like on Instagram. All right, so let's go back to the school thing, because obviously that's, you know, the advantage of you guys being younger than me and you're still in school and doing stuff. Okay, so Tallesha, is there any what's your experiences in school? I know we've touched on it with university, but before university, what was your experiences being conservative? And then you're in high school. Did you feel that there was an indoctrination program going on in your schools?
Yeah, definitely. The curriculum, in subjects like, say, geography, obviously it's climate change, and topics of climate change are pushed, and renewable energy.
Right.
But then, like, as a whole, like, they find out a way how to put like left-wing things into like every subject where they don't fit. Like, it's forced into every subject. Like, obviously you have the obvious subjects like geography, which will obviously have climate change in it. But then, say, in English, which, you know, you wouldn't think you would encounter too much of it, but they push things like anti-Australia Day things and Aboriginal politics and stuff like that.
That's in English.
Yeah, in English. Like, we had to a lot of the topics you would have to do would all be left-wing somehow, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so I've heard a report.
Learn the skill, but the background of it would be some type of left-wing activism.
Have they started like bringing on other pronouns into English or not yet?
In uni, whenever you have like an announcer or a lecturer, like when they introduce themselves, they always announce their pronouns. That is definitely a thing. Yeah.
So like they'll go like, I am a he or him, or a she,
they like say their name and they're like, my pronouns are he, him. You know, it's become an introduction thing that happens to me every time someone introduces themselves.
I guess from a language point of view, it's pretty good, because I didn't know what pronouns were until they started saying he, him, she, they, them, and all that kind of stuff. So that was that's pretty interesting. So with that English thing, I heard there was reports that I heard that at schools, and I think it was a school around my area in English, one of the topics was how media had portrayed women from the 1950s to now. And so what happened was, it wasn't even like a written report or newspaper clippings or articles. It was literally images, and they just had to talk about the images. So there was nothing really to do with English about it. It was more of a gender ideology kind of, you know, political science kind of topic that would be done more in university or, you know, in your own time. So have you experienced anything like that in English?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I did a media course at uni, so I did do stuff like that, and how the media portray women, or how the media portray, people from different races. You definitely study all of that.
Wow.
I think it's another thing I find is funny where they draw their evidence from.
Oh, yeah.
Like in school and in uni, like their examples are always drawn from like left-wing sources. They'll never use any other sources. So especially if you ever have to watch a news clip, is most likely going to be the ABC.
Yes.
Or ABC's Q&A or the project. It won't never be any other form of news.
Like they'd never use Sky News or something like that, really.
No,
because Sky,
way.
it's not, you're not going to get,
Sky News would only ever be used as an example for far right news. It will never be used as a valid example.
All right. So
yeah.
and Oraile, so because you're homeschooled, obviously the teachings that you have, like you're being taught and stuff like that, you would be, obviously it's more in the ideology of your family and their values. So how did you experience any sort of, have you had discussion about like left-wing topics and things like that at the table or during some sort of class that you have?
Well, everyone has family drama.
Everyone has family drama.
There's definitely been some of that. And I used to have a massive crush on a boy, and then he got vaccinated, so there were lots of conversations there. And then, like I said, the school I was going to for after-school drama club. So there's definitely been lots of that, and then arguments with myself to try and figure out where I stand on things. Does that answer the question?
It does answer the question, because I too struggle, because don't forget too, and I'm going to use this term, and if this term gets, because I haven't heard this term before, so I'm going to you can get right washed. Okay, so you can, if you're conservative, and then you'll find yourself starting to look at only right stuff. Okay, so you'll only get your news from, say, Sky News. You'll only read and you'll only listen to Jordan Peterson on YouTube or Facebook or whatever it is. What Candace Owens. I've got them all. Like I listen to all of them, and I try to take their knowledge and I look at them with awe, because I feel like their knowledge, and they're a bit older. Like I think they're a bit older than me too, so they've got more knowledge and a bit more knowledge on certain things. So I try to grasp and pull from those guys. But I really do like it when I get, your trollers and your trollers and stuff like that on Facebook, because what happens is you get to listen to the other point of view. So, I was at a pub lunch for Christmas. It was a Christmas party for work, and was talking to a few of the guys there. And one guy and I was having a nice little debate about it. So he would say his point, then I could say my point, and then he could say his point. And it was real good, because I could try to understand the lefter side of the idea. Because don't forget too, there is evidence to show that the globe is warming, but there's also evidence to show that the globe is cooling. So it's not science, so that's, so you need to, I'm trying to, in my idea as, being a candidate, is to try and get the both, and then I formulate my opinion from the knowledge that I've learned. I know I'm conservative, and but I also want to save the koalas a little bit too. You know what I mean? So I don't want to see those poor little things get hurt because of what we're doing, when we don't really need to hurt them to do what we're doing. So. It's about balancing, and I guess if I could pass on anything to you guys, today, it's a little bit of balance is always good. You need to hear both sides of the story to understand the perspective. So, and the only problem is that Tallesha, from your stories, and also from your Oraile, from your drama class stories as well, like, because it is so ingrained in the school processes, and you're getting the indoctrination of the left. It's just it's not just an idea anymore. It's not just like a topic of talk, or let's look at it from this perspective. It is like, you will listen to our perspective, you will follow our perspective, and if you don't follow our perspective, we're going to cancel you. And however, and they cancel argument, and they cancel arguments from anything. They cancel you as soon as they don't, by using the term. And I believe an ex-Prime Minister, Kevin Rudd, said this. He used the term racist when it wasn't a racist term, but to shut down an argument. So he goes, just you're a racist. And then you turn around, and as a conservative person, you turn around and go, well, wait a second. And then you start thinking about that, and it takes you off track, and then it ends the debate. So that's the biggest tactic that I find the left uses.
That's definitely left's biggest tactic. If you have started being called names, if they've labelled you racist or homophobic or transphobic, it's definitely because you're usually winning the argument. It's like that their way of shutting you up.
I know that's when you can turn around and go, yeah, because you just don't have to. Then you can just walk away. That's why it's really hard. You got to learn. Well, I got to learn not to really try to enter too much debate with stupid, because I'm happy to talk to somebody who wants to explain. If they can come at me with information and fact, and I'll listen to it. And then if I haven't got counterpoint arguments with fact or information, then that debate gets lost. Doesn't mean that the argument's lost, but the debate gets lost. And that's how there is a win and a lose kind of thing in everything. And then it makes you go and do a bit more research, and then you get a bit more knowledge, and then you can if you get into a situation like that, you can come harder. Go at it harder with them. So that's pretty cool as well. So look, guys, we're coming up to almost the hour mark. Is there anything else that you would like to talk about? Is there any other indoctrination stories or anything like that?
There is one more point I'll say, just because I think it'll be quite fun for you guys to have just in your podcast. Climate change is real. Climate change is completely real. Global warming was what they used to call it, and then people realized they could still go to Antarctica and they had to rename it. The climate is constantly changing, so making an argument that it isn't, you just can't do that. The problem occurs when they start saying climate change is going to kill everyone and climate change is something that man caused.
Yeah,
so that's
exactly.
I 100% agree with you on that topic. 100%. Climate does change. And I think what people are mixing up as well is the difference between climate change and environment change. So what happens is humans change their environment quite rapidly. Like we can clear cut some forest, put down a road, build a housing estate in a year. So we can change our environment pretty quickly, right? But by changing the environment, are we changing the climate? I don't agree. I don't believe that we are. So that's that. I mean, I'm not saying that if we went down and cut down every tree on the planet, that would definitely be a human-made environmental climate change factor. I would 100% agree with that. But I think so do you have something to add to that, Tallesha?
The thing with the left is when it comes to climate change, especially in school and just our generation, anything that happens they label as climate change now. They're like that radical about it. There's drought, it's climate change. It rains too much, it's climate change. It's too hot, it's climate change. Too cold, it's climate change. So it's like when the bushfires happened, obviously they started calling them climate fires instead of bushfires and blamed it all on climate change.
Yep.
But then when the floods happened, they also blamed it on climate change.
Yeah.
Even though we were told we wouldn't have enough rain, but then it floods and they're like, oh, it's climate change. I'm like, hang on, if we go back a few months,
balances it out.
Yeah, they said that we wouldn't get enough rain. We would only have a little bit of rain. It's going to be really dry, but they're completely wrong.
That's like Tom Flannery. We'll never fill a dam again. I can't remember what he said. Tim Flannery, so his name is. Sorry, you will never fill a dam again. All of a sudden, all the dams, all the levees, everything's full. We've got the Murray-Darling down the border, which I was down there not long ago helping Ricky Lee, and the pontoons where you get the paddle boats from were up in the air like this because there was so much water in the Murray that it had raised the level of the pontoons. So I completely agree with you guys.
like take them seriously when they say those things. And it's like, but you change your argument every 6 months, your argument changes. So how do you expect us to believe you when, like, the news is saying this is happening because of climate change, but then their predictions are completely wrong 6 months later? If they can't even look 6 months ahead, how can they predict that, the world's going to end in 12 years because of climate change?
Absolutely. It's 100. Climate. So I love climate. So climate change is. I've been done a lot of research on this. This is probably the strongest topic I've got. And energy. If they really, really, really cared about the environment, right? This is where all my information, everything's come down to. Okay, they really cared about the environment, we would go nuclear. And the only way we can go nuclear, okay, is by reinforcing our coal at the moment, because nuclear is about 10 to 15. If we stopped everything right now and needed to build infrastructure for nuclear, it would take around about 10 to 15 years to get it kind of like up and running. So we've got about 400 years worth of coal is the estimate. We would need to burn coal to have the industry, to have the cheap enough energy for now to get us through, keep the lights on, and then you would transition to nuclear. So the idea is from everyone that I've done my research through and all that, it's about energy dense forms. So what happens is we used to burn wood, which is, it's got energy dense, but it's not as energy dense as coal. So coal's far greater in energy density. So then what happens is the natural progression would be go to uranium, because uranium is far more dense in energy than coal. So what happens is you need less of it and you get more energy from it. Okay. When you go to things like, my research has showed, when you go to wind and solar, okay, it's not as dense of an energy form as coal. It's not even as a dense energy form as burning wood chips, which they're doing over in England and stuff at the moment now, because they haven't got enough energy to keep their houses from freezing. So what happens is, that's what they keep talking about. This is why the green argument falls flat on, and I don't give them much time, because you're taking away a strong, reliable, reasonably rich, clean source of energy. So don't forget too, with coal, you dig it out of the ground, you take it to the coal power station and you burn it. That's all you do with it. With to get energy from the sun and to get energy from the wind, you have to build these monstrosities, which are harder to mine, which use more fossil fuels to mine and produce anyway. And then they have the height to say it's renewable, when a wind farm won't last 10 years or 15 years, and a solar panel won't last over 15 years. And then you have to replace them and put new ones in. So on that whole climate thing, don't ever listen to those guys. That's a lie completely. And I know you guys know about it, and that's what I like about you guys, because you guys will reach out to the younger people and say, hey, wait a minute, what about this? What about this? What about this? So there's a really good book that you guys could read. It's called Trigger Warming. That's a good, easy read. And then obviously, I don't know if you've read Green Murder yet. That's by Ian Plimer. We're trying to get Ian Plimer on. And that's also really good. But have a look at our other, I know we're going to round up now. We're almost at an hour, and I know it's getting a bit late. And I'm also getting a bit tired, because don't forget, I'm the old man of the group, right? So so what's going to happen is, have a look at our podcasts, our previous podcasts and stuff, if you haven't already. There's some really good ones on there, about the voice. We speak to an Indigenous elder, Aboriginal elder, because I don't like to be called Indigenous, because anyone born in Australia is Indigenous to the country. Okay, so the Aboriginal, if you're calling them Indigenous, it's kind of stripping their heritage. So Aboriginal elder, she was lovely. And we also spoke to, Dr. Peter Reid, and we've had Jim Allen, and we've had some really good guests on there that really kind of, and we just get to the bone of it and like a bit of nitty gritty. So, and if you ever get into an argument with climate change or something like that, you can throw one of those guys. You just get the link and just flick it to those guys and go, hey, this, and I've done it plenty of times. That's what I do now. So I'll go through, and if somebody talks to me about there's no such thing as school indoctrination, I'll get this one once it's all edited up and that, and then I'll flick it to them and say, well, these two girls have been to school. They're in school currently. And guess what? They're copying it. So, and then we know another young lady, Jemima. So she's spoken to us before about it as well. And we just flick that to them, and it's out of the, excuse the phrase, but out of the horse's mouth. It's better coming from you guys than it is coming from somebody like me, who I didn't really go through that kind of indoctrination that you guys went through. We're all going through. So, okay, Oraile, and okay, Tallesha, it's been a real pleasure having you guys on.
Thank you.
Can we find you anywhere? Are you still thinking about the Young Freedom Fighters, or can we put the link up for that, or can you send us the link so we can put that up for you guys, or are you just trying to let that one die?
I think there's still a lot of good content on there, so if people are interested in what we have to say, it's all there, but it's probably not going to be used again.
Okay, good. Well, what we'll do is we'll put the link up for that one. And look, I look really forward to seeing you guys in the future, and wherever your path and careers take you. I'll see you in Parliament House one day, Tallesha, for sure. And Oraile, I'm sure you're working towards something great as well. So good luck with everything. And it has been a pleasure talking to you, young ladies, and I will catch you on the flip side.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.